welcome to another super exciting video about rhythms. This one will cover some meter changes, not just 4/4, but also we'll introduce dotted rhythms. But first, a little bit of review. Let's mark this example with all of our counting and count and clap it. And also, before I forget to remind you, if you play an instrument, please go get that instrument now. Pause the video if necessary. We will also be playing some of these examples. Are you back with your instrument? Let's get started. Of course, we have beat 1 for the first thing that we see, and this one also includes the and of 1, which I will now be using superscripts to show that these are all together instead of separate things like we have here. The 2 and the and of 2, separate notes. And of course, this half note includes 4/8 notes worth of time, so it will include 4/8 notes worth of notation. We have 3 and 4 and. Okay? We've completed our measure. We have beat 4. Now we have to start over at 1. And we have 1 and for the first quarter note. And then, just as before, 2 and the end of 2 separately. Then we have beat 3 and 4 and. Alright, let us clap this rhythm. 1 and 2 and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, let's play that on our instruments. I will be using a flute today, and I'm going to use a concert B flat. It doesn't really matter what note you pick. That being said, I'm going to count myself in, and I'm going to do all the subdividing during the measures in my head, of course. And I would like you to try and subdivide in your head, especially for that half note. We have to take into account all 4/8 notes of time that half note takes up. Here we go. 1 and 2 and ready, go. Alright, how did you do? I will bet if we measured it out, I was probably rushing, because I tend to do that without a metronome. But that's why we practice with metronomes, to sort out our time issues. Let's move on to the next example, which will include some dots. Okay, as you can see here, I have tied the first quarter note with the 8th note that we had before. And I have also changed this quarter note and the 8th note we had before into a dotted quarter note. This and this are essentially the same, because what this dot does is it adds half of the value of the note it is attached to. Normally, a quarter note is worth 2/8 notes worth of time, and half of 2 is 1. The dotted quarter note is worth 3/8 notes worth of time. That is 2 plus half of 2, which is 2 plus 1. 1, 2, 3/8 notes worth of time. Just like I have here, 1, 2, 3/8 notes worth of time, all tied together within 2 notes. Let us count and clap this exercise. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, one more time. Make sure you're subdividing. That way you know where to put the claps on the ands, especially with these tied or dotted rhythms. Again, 1 and 2 and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Alright, let us play this one on our instrument. 1 and 2 and ready, go. Okay, let's move on to our next example, which will be in 3/4. Alright, I would like to point out our meter change. We still have the quarter note as the beat, but now we only have 3 of them in between each bar line. We have one quarter note and another, and these 2 eighth notes, which combined together make a whole quarter note's worth of time. Let's go ahead and fill in the counting for this example. We have 1, and of course the and of 1 inside that first quarter note, and beat 2 and the and of 2, and then we have beat 3 and the and of 3. We have completed all 3 beats. Now we have to restart on beat 1. 2 and, right? And 3 and. We have a dotted half note, which starts on beat 1, and it's the only note in the measure, which means it must have 3 beats, but also it has 3 beats because of the dot, because a half note is normally 2, and 2 plus half of 2, which is what the dot does. 2 plus half of 2 is 3, or 2 plus 1 is 3. This will be all 3 beats, and let's go ahead and fill all these in. We're gonna, for the sake of brevity, forget the ends, also because it's the last note. As long as we are saying the ands, or thinking them, we will keep track of where they belong. Let's go ahead and clap this example. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and go and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Alright, let's play this example. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and go. Okay, this is why it is important to subdivide. If you cut that dotted half note off early, before I did, then chances are you weren't subdividing. And chances are, if you're playing in band or with other people, you're also going to cut your notes short. We want to make sure to always play together. That means subdividing together. So, if you need to, go back and do that one again. There's no shame in repeating until you have completed the lesson. That being said, we're moving on to the next thing, which will be 3/4 with some dots. Okay, here we go with some dotted rhythms on our 3/4 rhythms. 3/4 meter, rather. We have, of course, beat 1 happening first. This is a dotted quarter note, so it takes up all 3 of the first eighth notes, the first 3 eighth notes of time. Always after 2, it's and. and then read. Okay? Simple enough. Same, we have a quarter note, and dotted quarter note takes up 3/8 notes worth of time, so we're going to have 2 and 3, and the last and of the measure is going to be, of course, the and of 3. 2 notes in the last measure. Say 2, don't write 2. 1, and this takes up the last 2 full beats. Okay? Let's go ahead and clap this rhythm. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and go, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Alright? Let's try that again. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Alright, let's try this with instruments. 1 and 2 and ready, go. Alright, we'll move on to our last example, which will be in 2/4. Here, the beats just get recycled faster, much like 3/4 had 1 fewer beat than 3/4. We have now 1 fewer beats than 3/4. Not a particularly novel concept at this point, I hope. However, we will do this, filling in the beats one last time, and then go ahead and read through this with clapping and playing. Of course, we always start with 1. We have 1 and for the first quarter note, and 2 and. And now our beats recycle, and we have 1 again, 2/8 notes, 1 quarter note, and we have all 4 eighth notes in this measure, so each one gets its own number or and of course the last one, a half note, is worth the whole measure, is all of the last beats, and we'll just write 2 beats. Make sure, of course, that you subdivide that one when you are playing. Include the ands both in your head and when we're counting and clapping. Alright, let's do this one. 1, 2, 1, go. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Alright, I would say simple enough, but if it wasn't, go ahead and go back and do that again. No big deal. Everyone else, pick up your instruments. We'll play through this one once. Ready? 1 and 2 and 1 and go, and. Alright. Don't forget to apply this to the music that you're working on, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell, because if you made it this far, you're probably watching several videos and getting a lot of extra practice time in, and that's a good thing. So make sure you keep these lessons up and keep learning rhythms and all the awesome things that are found in music. Have a nice day.